Public comment, Mr. Fisher, you had it first, and then Mr. Norton.
Yes, Steve Fisher, I'm a local fisheries consultant. I'm just going to sit here because I want to make my comments really brief as opposed to what I thought they would be yesterday when I started going through this. I read almost every word in the materials submitted, and as time went by, the project became more ripe as far as I'm concerned. It's a good project now. There's 3 things in it that I took to the Nature Conservancy early on, and I will commend them for meeting with me personally. I met with Art Talisman and Dana one day out at the picnic table on the creek, and we talked about some of the things I was worried about. Number 1, I won't make any bones about it. I would like to see all of Kilpatrick Pond dredged out. I would like to see a lake there. I think it would be a tremendous recreational amenity. You'd go out there and catch 3-foot-long rainbow trout all day long. It would work great for handicapped people. That's what I would really like to see. That's not in the cards. I'm getting about half of what I would like to see in this project. They're literally cleaning out half of the pond. They're taking it down to gravel. This is an extremely important component in this project, is to get that water in contact with that saturated groundwater. It's my belief that these ponds are heating up more because they're not connected with the groundwater than because they are full of silt. The silt is making them shallow, but it's isolating that water from the groundwater. I've got 2 or 3 projects in this watershed that I'd be happy to talk to people about and show them the thermal images that we have. These ponds can cool water. I do believe that this project will also cool water. I like what they've done as far as going deep. The second thing that I recommended to them was to hire Eric Anderson at Golden Environmental. This guy is a magician. He works throughout the United States. He worked originally for one of the largest dredging companies in the world. He has split off from them in the last 10 years or so, and he is absolutely the best. You'll be very surprised. I'm very encouraged to see him on this project. Another thing that Dana touched on very briefly here that I think is an important part of this project is some kind of a sacrifice area. We know there's silt in the upper watershed. The extreme upper watershed is getting pretty clean at Silver Creek right now, but the lower watershed, particularly on the Conservancy, still holds a lot of legacy silts, and they're going to flush down into this project. They're either going to stay there or they're going to be flushed through. I'm not sure which. And the one final comment I'd like to make is, remember, the dam is still there. The velocities through this area, I'd be very surprised if they're going to change at all. It's still an impoundment. Even though there's a narrower channel up above the Kilpatrick Bridge, it's still an impoundment. There is some gradient up there, but very, very slight. So I think that we're looking at a very complete project here that's been very well thought out. I'm a little nervous about the fence holding back the sediments. I'm going to defer to the experts on that. I've never built it. Thank you.
Very good. And I really want to compliment you for sticking to 3 minutes. So that's going to be my time limit because it gave everybody a chance. It's Northern, and then somebody will be next.
Permit me, I'll stand because my voice is carried as well as yours. Carmen Northern, I'm the National Leadership Council rep for Idaho TU. And I wanted to really thank all the work that the Purdy's and the Nature Conservancy has done in this project, and we really support it. And we think it's good science, and the bottom line is what's good for the fish, because if you take care of the fish, the fishing takes care of itself. In regards to, there was some mention about the fish rescues, and our chapter and members and volunteers from the community do participate, and we've got a great 500-gallon tank with an aerator and oxygen and everything, and we could certainly assist, and we'd be very happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next? Don't be shy because we don't have a whole lot of time. Yes, sir, and then you, Mr. French.
My name is John Huber. I represent Peekaboo Angler, the designated agent for the newest outfitter in the valley. So I have a lot at stake here financially. If this thing fails, I'm going to fail. So it's very important to me that this works, and I've thrown all my support behind Dana. I believe in this project. I came today because from the comments that I've been reading in the paper, there's been a lot of fear-mongering that the fish are going to die, the bugs are going to die, we're going to lose our access. Well, none of that's true. The access isn't going anywhere. The nature of the access may change slightly, but the access is the access. The access is the same all over Idaho. You can put it at the top and get out at the bottom. This one's a little different because you can manipulate your way back upstream. The worry is that it's going to be so deep I won't be able to do it. Well, I can go into the S-turns today and get upstream and flow to deepest part of the creek, no problem. I can do it. If you're worried about insects, go put a bucket in your yard in July and see how fast the mosquitoes get in your bucket. Those are aquatic insects. There's generations of insects, multiple generations in that creek throughout the season. As soon as the water comes back, they're going to find the water, they're going to repopulate. Doug, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Silver Creek is the most fish per mile in the state of Idaho. We're talking about 1,100 feet. We're going to lose some fish. We're probably going to lose some fish. Those fish are going to come right back. They're going to. The one thing that really bothers me the most about this whole project is the idea that the Purdy family or the Double R Fishing Club, I think the quote was they're making a fish grab or a water grab. Well, if that was the case, I recently did an article for the Times News. The Purdys are the only people that have a public access on their land. It's not a fee access. You don't have to come and ask. You can just go. There's a sign that says, please pack your trash out. And for somebody to imply that the Purdys are making a fish grab, that they're doing something to enhance their own personal fishery, is wild, because this is going to push cold water downstream. It's going to affect the bug life. We're going to see a return of the small insects. And all these river miles are going to be more and more fishable as the years go on. So I've been guiding here for 22 years. I fished the lower stretch all the time, year in and year out. I watched it change. I watched the tricos come. I watched them go. Change is part of that creek. It's part of the system. It's part of the insect life. And for somebody to say, well, if you reduce the space in Kilpatrick Pond, you're going to congest the anglers, well, I would counter that absolutely not. You're going to push that cold water downstream. You're going to increase the quality of the fishery for miles and miles and miles. Therefore, you're going to open up much more opportunity for anglers all over the state, all over the world, to come and enjoy many more miles of Silver Creek as opposed to one little pond. So that was my comment. I just hope that people will understand the Purdys are not making a land grab here or a water grab or a fish grab. I know for a fact that the Purdys are working with Fish and Game to put these non-fee access areas into public access forever for my grandchildren, my grandchildren's grandchildren. It's crazy to think that this is anything other than somebody trying to take a holistic look at the creek and benefit everybody by doing something about it.
Absolutely, yeah. Sure. Address your comments to the board, though, if you would, and give us your name, please.
My name is John French, owner of the Twin Rocks Ranch, a property located about 10 miles downstream of the subject, about 1.5 miles of Silver Creek right through it. When I bought the property in '01, I could not wade in my creek. It was so full of silt, weeds, and algae. After about 6 years of restoration, by narrowing the channels, by rebuilding creek banks, creating wetlands, back channels, I now can wade the entire length of my restoration area. I'll make 2 points there. One is, there's been talk about flow so much you can't wade. If you're a 10-year-old, you probably can't wade. Anybody older than the age of 10, because I have waded every inch of my creek down and back walking on gravel. So you can get out in a canoe anytime you like, drop in a line, and fish on my piece of the creek. The second little anecdote I tell, I put it in my letter, so forgive me for repeating myself, Larry, but I have a long-time friend and fishing guide who looked at what I was doing about 3 years ago and said, John, I like what you're doing basically, but you probably just destroyed some of the best brown drake habitat in Silver Creek. And we fished it together along with another old timer here last June. And by 9 p.m. we were spitting brown drakes out of our teeth, and both guys who have fished here for 30 years said one of the top 2 or 3 brown drake hatches they've ever seen. So yes, we disturb habitat temporarily. It does come back. It takes about a year to get established. But after 2 years, you can't tell there's anything done except an improved habitat. So I urge you to support the project, commissioners, and thank the Purdys for getting behind this and TNC for doing their part and then some, so.
Thank you. Who's next? Yes, sir, in the back row, Mr. Helms.
Nick Howerson, Idaho resident, born and raised in Idaho, lived here 44 years. There seems to be three problems that I don't think anybody, denies. One being sedimentation, the other one being thermal climb, the other one being lack of migration of fish, if that were wished, back and forth on Silver because of the existing dam that's there. I think common sense, tells you that all three of these issues are being, addressed here. There is a problem on Silver Creek, and thankfully, there is two entities that are willing to do something about it at no small cost or effort on their part, the Purdy's and the Nature Conservancy. I think it's rather amazing that the Nature Conservancy and the Purdy's are working hand in hand to try and do something. They're obviously concerned about Silver Creek, as we all are. And I appreciate the time to address the commissioners, and with all due respect, I mean, I've done projects, several of these, through the agencies on the Big Lost River, with fish ladders, with bank restoration and everything else. And I think what everybody needs to keep in mind is it's no small chore to get through the permitting process. I believe everybody has signed off on this, and this is the last step in the permitting process. I know in dealing with these agencies, they don't take this lightly. In the science, what's involved, and what they're trying to accomplish here. And even once the project starts, they don't just turn their back on it. You talk about and you're concerned about the follow-up on it, what's going to happen. All of these agencies watch these projects very, very carefully. And the amount of science that they put into this on any of these stream projects is amazing. But you're talking about, the Army Corps of Engineers, the NRCS, the University of Idaho, the Nature Conservancy, IDWR, Idaho Fish and Game, U.S. Fish and Wildlife agencies. They've all put their time and efforts into this to look at this project and say, is this good? And they have said, yes, this is a good project. We're willing to sign off on it. And so most of the science, as a broad brushstroke, is before this fact. Now we come down to the last step here. And there are no finite answers. I mean, it's best effort, but thankfully we have the Nature Conservancy and the Purdy's that, are willing to try and invest their money to try and better the fishery. And I think the science is before this point, and I would encourage the commissioners to really think about that it's a good project. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. Actually, I want to go back to what I said earlier. We will not approve this permit until we've heard from IDWR. So in that respect, yes, we are the last permitting agency along the way. We have had the conversation over the years with the federal and state agencies. Does Blaine County stream alteration permit process add value? We have been told consistently and repeatedly, yes, we do. And one of the advantages of having this is we take a close look at the ground level, at the local level, and provide people like you an opportunity to comment directly within your own community and amongst each other on what is best in light of all the science that's gone before. So I appreciate the comment, but I just want to point out, I mean, there are people who question why are we here, and we have found over the years that the Blaine County Stream Alteration Permit Program is of very high value and is unique in Idaho. Next. Yes, sir.
I'm Captain Appleboy. I'm a fly fishing guide here in the valley. And I'm a fly fishing guide who primarily guides on Silver Creek. So it's the majority of my income. And I apologize for my voice. I'm getting over a cold, so apologize in advance. When I was 13 years old, I read an article in Fly Fisherman magazine, which covered my walls, about Silver Creek. And it was the Graduate School of American Fly Fishing. And I thought, that is the stream for me. And it is my favorite river in the world, full stop. I had the pleasure of getting to live in Peekaboo for 3.5 years, simply so I could be closer to it. So I have a pretty strong personal connection to that river, and that is why I am so strongly in favor of this project. This is a project that benefits 96% of one of the greatest trout streams in America and in the world. 96% of Silver Creek is below the Purdy Dam, is below Kilpatrick Pond. And right now, we are losing the quality of the fishery on that 96% of the river for 1.5% of the river, because we are warming up 1.5% of the river very, very significantly. And with trout, and especially rainbow trout, which are the primo dry fly fish, that is the economic driver of fly fishing in this valley, the difference in 10 degrees of water, especially down there, is incredibly significant. As Dana was showing, 68 degrees is unhappy level for rainbow trout. 58 degrees, rainbow trout are munching everything in sight. If we can cool Silver Creek, any effort we can make to cool lower Silver Creek, we are not losing fishing quality and fishing access. We're changing it at 1.5%, but we are gaining quality fishery on 96% of this river. On a river that people all over the world read articles in magazines like Fly Fisherman and say, that is the river for me, and they come here and they fish. And so it's not just about the people who fish there, it's about everyone else who comes to this valley, because that river is one of our great draws, and is one of the jewels of American fishing. And this is an amazing opportunity to enhance that fishery. And I hope, and I thank you guys for the opportunity to speak today, and I hope you will approve this project with that goal in mind. Thank you.
Who is it? York.
I'm Carrie York, I am the Wood River Land Trust. And I'd just like to reflect on one point that Mick brought up earlier. The Land Trust works on a lot of cooperative restoration projects in the Wood River Valley. And it is very unique that you have two large landowners that are willing and enthusiastic about cooperating on a project, especially when one of them is a conservation organization and another one is a livestock company. And I feel that that reflects a lot of the resource concerns that a lot of people have. And you're getting that from a wide spectrum of people, from fishermen to scientists to fly fishing guides and all sorts of those comments. So I think that this represents a really good case where we have a lot of common interests to address a natural resource concern. Thanks.
Who's next? Anybody? Heard it all? Yes, sir.
I'm Travis Thompson. I'm attorney representing John Flood, property owner downstream Queens County Ranch. And very encouraged by the applicant's, I guess, desire to improve water quality, increase sediment load transport in a more natural function rather than a flushing action. And I've submitted some written comments to Nancy that address our concerns, future monitoring, which may be addressed in Dana's plan that was just submitted. Chuck had put together a water management plan that we think will address how sediment will move, and hopefully it works as planned. And that's our main concern, that future monitoring be completed, that if it doesn't work, that sediment is removed in a way without a flushing action to push sediment downstream at a quick rate. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, sir. And
My name is Jim Carconen, and I couldn't disagree more with some of my fellow guides here that have spoken today. That's okay, we disagree on what fly to put on, probably to match the hatch too, so it's all consistent. If this were only about the transportation of silt down the stream bed, I would be 100% in favor of it. And everyone that I've talked to agrees that the creek is mucked up and something needs to be done. But there's two major flaws to the current proposal as I see it, and as many people that I've talked to also agree with me. One is very obvious. You're taking 3.2 acres of currently fishable water and you're creating earth with it. So all those people who enjoy an open lake bay area out there are now going to be restricted to less water to fish, and that's unfortunate. Those people that don't like to go and walk the channels of the Upper Conservancy or other types of fishing that like to just be casual. Fishing it by having your feet embedded in the stream bed. If you want to go for a float, if you want to pick your legs up and go for a Disneyland style inner tube ride down the stream, which is all it's going to be based on what I'm seeing here on the plans and what I've read from the depth charts from the graph that I've read on the project proposal, you're not going to be able to effectively fish the lower section below Kilpatrick's. When you're fishing nymphs, when you're fishing dries, when you're pulling streamers, you need to position yourself in the stream bed and stabilize yourself so you have an opportunity to fish. If you're not able to touch the bottom, you're floating. And this is not a freestone river where you're standing on the bank and you're lobbing lead in the middle of the deepest part of the river. You are stabilizing yourself and you're making casts, you're moving 10 feet here, 12 feet there, and that's what people like to dedicate their entire day to doing when they go to fishing Silver Creek in the lower pond. And if they change their mind and they want to come back upstream because of weather, because they're tired, because of lunch or any other reason, how are they going to have egress when they can't even find the bottom? I'm 6'7", and I float the S-turns. I have a tough time finding the bottom of the stream bed, even at my height. So I feel concerned, not for people like myself, but for all the other public people who are now going to be restricted by the depth that this channel is going to create. I think we have to be very concerned about that, and I don't know why we can't compromise and come together on an agreement to accomplish both things, silt removal as well as a fishery that works for everyone. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Loomis and then Mr. Glasgow.
My name's Craig Loomis. I've lived in the valley for about 30 years. I have to read this or I'm going to get too emotional about it. I'm in favor of the project. Everybody pretty much knows that. And I especially want to thank TNC, the Purdy's, and the landowners that have made an absolutely amazing effort to work together on this project. It's something I've wanted to see for 20 years, or to react upon. I'm hopeful that the data, science, designs, public input, and permit requirements are more than sufficient to continue with the process to see this project through to completion. And any changes that are necessary before the start of construction, that the landowners, engineers, consultants, and agencies will make these changes, taking into consideration what's best for Silver Creek. The health of the entire Silver Creek drainage plays a key role in the social, economic, and environmental scene of this area. I'm hopeful that the access issues that have been a concern for the community will be resolved through cooperation, management, and a spirit that embodies the fact that we as a community are taking a step to preserve what is arguably one of the most unique, diverse, and valuable spring creeks in the world. We must step up and do what is best for Silver Creek, and I believe this project is a step in that direction. I feel the benefits of a healthy future for Silver Creek are number one in priority. I would go on forever talking about Silver Creek, probably until the next ice age when the creek heals itself, but I want it to be brief.
Thank you, Mr. Loomis. Mr. Glasgow.
Yeah, I'm opposed to a lot of this project, David Glasscock, but I think some of it is good. I really think the dam issue is being addressed well, and it's a very good plan. It's something that's long overdue. I'm still very concerned about the net loss of fishable area, both upstream and downstream of Kilpatrick Bridge for the public. I still have concerns about, what Jim is saying about being able to get up and down below Kilpatrick Bridge in your float tube once these projects are finished, the depth. And I still have concerns that even if these projects go through, that it's really going to make that big of a difference in water temperatures downstream. Dana said there's no other cold water coming in below the dam at Kilpatrick Pond. There are a couple of wells that pump water in, one at Point of Rocks at the Martin Bridge. There's actually two there that contribute a considerable amount of cold water into Silver Creek. So I want that to go on the record. And the other issue I'm concerned about too is, I agree with what Mr. Fisher is saying. I would just as soon see a dredge come in, remove the sediment, and then it's out of the stream. There's no chance of it going further downstream onto other people's properties, such as the Frenches or the floods. There's still a significant amount of sediment in Silver Creek tributaries. Mud Creek is a perfect example. And then with the spring runoff each year, if we have significant snowpack in the Peekaboo Hills, there's always quite a bit of sediment still loading into the stream system from the runoff. So that sediment is going to continue to move through the system. And by looking at these two projects, what I'm saying is by narrowing the stream up from Kilpatrick Bridge, that sediment is going to flush through and it's going to settle out in the next wider section of the stream, which is just immediately below Kilpatrick Bridge, because that's a very wide section. And Dana says, you know, when they do their project, they're going to dredge this area just immediately below Kilpatrick Bridge. But I foresee in the future more sediment settling in there from upstream sources. So I think it's something we need to think about. And you know, the future, I mean, we're not solving the problem upstream with these projects of future sediment coming downstream.
You know, I want to get ready to wrap this up here fairly soon. Anybody who hasn't spoken, yes, Mr. Carr.
Yeah, Carl Levinson, I'm a fly fishing guide and also from the fishery biologist. I don't know if I can I ask questions first to Dana and Chuck?
You know what,
Or is that
I'll
just
tell you
fine?
what I think would be best. Go ahead and ask your question. So I have a feeling that the applicants are going to want to respond to a number of the comments that they've heard. So rather than go back and forth, if you can ask your questions, they'll write it down, and then, you know, I'm going to give them the last word today, okay? Let's do it that way. And if you have comments, please fill those in for that.
As far as the thermal effects on the creek, you know, obviously the heat is a big one for Silver Creek right now, which is it gets warmer than it needs to, but in a lot of fisheries also, the thermal effects in the wintertime are important to look at. And I can see that this project should, since it's bringing more spring water temperatures downstream in the summer, in winter when the spring water is actually warmer than air temperature, it effectively should be bringing more cold water downstream, which will help that fishery down there and also help bring more ice-free areas for the waterfowl down there also. I was kind of going to ask that as a question if it would. I assume it's kind of engineered to do that also, since it's bringing more of it down in the summertime, which is another benefit that hasn't been really pointed out, but that is a limit on a lot of fisheries, the winter effects of temperature. As far as comments on this, as far as what you guys are looking at and making the decision here, as a fishing guide, it is my livelihood, but it's more important to not look at how we fish that, and fishermen can adjust and balance it, but to how basically this project affects the fishery, not how it affects our fishing and whether we have to change the way we fish or the way we walk up and down the stream, or whether we use fins in there instead of walking on the bottom, which I have these fins because you still have less mushrooms than going to shallower areas if you want to. But rather how this project affects the fishery and whether it's going to enhance the fishery. If we don't do anything, the sediment's going to build up and get worse, and I think we're all aware of that. Regardless of climate change, it's going to get even hotter in there with more and more silt building up in that dam. But it is important that we look at how this project affects the fishery itself, entirely up and down the stream, including downstream effects. And you guys have looked at that thoroughly, and I believe you worked a lot of that out at trying to get it to help us as much as possible to keep the stream cooler downstream. I know there's some people that say, well, if we don't have fish kills, it doesn't matter. It does matter. If that matters, anytime you get above the 68 degrees that Dana's talking about, it does affect those fish. It affects the way that we can catch those fish also, as far as that regard goes. And so in that regard, versus doing nothing, of course, and the way you've set this project up, you're doing a good job of looking at it, and I support the project.
Thank you. Any last testimony? Yes. And then,
In Northern, Avery resident, fishing guide, president of the local trout unlimited chapter. And I just want to applaud and thank the Purdy's and Nature Conservancy for the work you've already done and for your vision for the future, and the energy and the effort and money that's gone into this. And to the commissioners, I would just say that Trout Unlimited's mission statement is to protect, reconnect, restore, and sustain cold water fisheries. We're concerned about the health of the fishery, and as Carmen had said, you take care of the fish, the fishing will take care of itself. I think that the plans for you is a strike on all of the points of protecting, of reconnecting, of sustaining, and of restoring Silver Creek. And we fully support the project. Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Chad Shorney. I work for Trout Unlimited, actually staff, and Ed just stole exactly one of the points I was going to make. But one of the things TU looks at when they get behind a project like this is not the benefit that it has just in the immediate vicinity of the project, but how it can benefit the whole river, the whole watershed. We've heard talk about it for the fishery or the fishing. It's for Silver Creek, it's for the whole watershed. That's what the focus of the project is, and that's where you're going to see a lot of the benefit. We've heard it before. I think the guides know what they're talking about. Fish is going to take care of itself. And then I'd just like to thank the Purdy Family Nature Conservancy for letting Charter Unlimited have the opportunity to review the project as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Shad. Okay, 1 minute, one last comment. We are going to have another hearing on this. I'd like to give, I'll take one last comment. I know our staff may have some comments, and I know we're going to want to hear about some of the late arriving materials like the monitoring and other things at the next hearing. And I want to give the Nature Conservancy and the Purdy's a chance to respond to some of the comments. Who would like the last word? Anybody? From the public? Okay. I'm going to close the public comment for today. As I say, there will be another hearing. We will afford some time for public comment at that next hearing. Nick or Bud or Tony, anybody want to comment? Respond to some of the, there was a question about the open areas and winter waterfowl. You want to comment on that, David?
Yeah, you know, Carl's point is well taken. We,
Say your name if you don't mind.
sorry, Dana Gross with the Nature Conservancy. Part of this project we don't talk about a lot really is the benefits to the waterfowl and the birds. Wetlands, somebody I think mentioned said just we're taking water and turning it into ground. Well, we're turning it into wetlands, which are some of the most at risk. I mean, it's the most at-risk habitat probably in the world. Declining wetlands all over the place. All those birds that use those areas, the insects. So we're returning it to wetlands. It probably will keep the water colder in the winter and more open area downstream. There are changes, and I think we've all heard the passion in people's voices, but the fishery will be better. So.
Okay, that's your last word. Oh, Nick, go ahead.
I'm Nick Purdy. I want to say that this isn't my first rodeo. I've been about 10 years working on the creek, and on the pictures of the pond where you saw that deep blue area, and that started in about 2000. And I didn't get any permits because I was working on my head game. But I've got a lot of experience with Silver Creek on how to rehab it, how to protect it. But now, with the input from the Nature Conservancy, Trout Unlimited, and all the agencies, and with the experience we've had for 10 years, I think we're qualified to do this project. So thank you for being here today.
Jeff Loomis, I didn't want to, did you want to say anything you want to bring up this time? You want to wait for the next hearing? That'd be all right with you?
Sure.
Okay. Commissioners? Let's give Bud a chance to grace for it. We've all been sitting for about 2.5 hours. And that's a long time in a hot room.
Thanks for showing up.
Give my colleagues here any last thoughts. I just want to, on behalf of the board.
We need to sign that.
Yeah, that's right. I know, I see people getting up to leave us, so give us a chance to finish up the hearing if you would. But I do want to say that on behalf of the board, we appreciate some of the testimony was emotional even for me because I live down there and I love it so. So thanks. We want to talk about a next hearing.
Yes, we do.
Did you have a suggestion?
Well, I guess one thing, everything that was presented today is part of the public record.
Right.
So please, those that presented, give us a copy of that so we can make that available to the public. And it's either going to be available online or available in our office for anyone that's interested in inquiring further about today's materials. That's also true of the materials that were submitted within the last day or two that you may not have had an opportunity to see online or read. Those will also be available. And if anything is not available that you suspect, please call and ask and we'll find out and make it available. Okay, and if you want to submit further public comment, the PC counter at Blaine County.
PZ counter at co.blaine.id.us. There's a lot of public comment coming in, and it's a lot easier if it all goes to the same spot so it doesn't get lost.
PZ, like planning zoning
PZ counter at co.blaine.id.us. And there's some little tags back on that back table if you're interested in accessing the materials on the website. that tells you how to get to it. Thank you.
And as far as next hearing, that's kind of a little bit on the schedule for IDWR. You know, getting comments from them, and so I guess we'll kind of follow up and see what time frame works, but we're anticipating as soon as possible.
So we don't have to make a determination today as to when we're continuing. We can just leave that open for right now. If it's not within 30 days, we will have to renotice it, and that takes an additional 14 days. But we want to at least give ourselves the opportunity to make a decision on this at the next hearing, I would say. And so we'll be in touch with the Department of Water Resources, and I'm sure you'll know about it one way or the other. We really appreciate your coming and all of your comments.
And if you didn't add your maybe an email address to the sign-in sheet, please do that, and we will make the best effort to kind of contact people directly too when we establish a new hearing date.
Yeah, we create a big group list, and that way you get the information directly.
Do you want a motion to continue to a date uncertain? That's not
Do we need
necessary.
that?
I think you should, yeah.
Okay.
I move to continue to a date uncertain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.